Yeah,
All done.
like what are you all done? No, and that's it's such a growing theme too. I mean, I see this kind of bring your whole self to work theme that's last couple of years now across a lot of HR organizations and conferences because it's become this big thing. I think everybody's grappling with there's the leadership in the organization and all the transactional things I have to think about in my job, but it cannot be divorced from who I am as a person. And I think people cannot show up at work and feel robotic. And it's been a long time in coming. And I think we're finally coming around, which is exciting. Something that I think people like you and Mark Babbitt and Sean Murphy and a whole bunch of other people have recognized early on, which is at some point that alignment, that out of alignment is going to throw something off, right? I mean, it's your back, your knee, everything. You're out of alignment, right? And you've got to get back in alignment. And the only way you can get back in alignment is to be who you are across all these situations. And I think that lack of alignment of your bringing that personal self to work, I think causes people tremendous distress.
Absolutely so. And it's interesting because I'm an executive coach. And again, with the work that I do with organizational culture, I work with senior leadership teams very, very closely because if those leadership teams aren't aligned to the culture they want, then it's never going to get traction. It's never going to evolve. And it's very interesting to be a voice of clarity and reason for some senior execs who have been behaving badly, maybe not wanting to be mean, nasty, ugly, or whatnot, but they really are doing much more of this than they're doing this. And so I had a conversation with one recently, and I said, time out, can we just talk about, tell me what the impact is that some of your style, some of your decisions, and she says, oh, I know that they see me as very mean and nasty and rotten. And I said, are you getting somewhere with that? It's the Dr. Phil thing. Is that working for you? And she's like, I don't know how else to behave. I don't know what else I should do. And I said, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Because you're a funny person. You're a very nice person, but you have this persona that comes up. And when you're acting from that persona, you're not serving others very well, and people don't trust you. And I think that was an interesting, maybe shocking kind of piece. And I think back to my early days when I was trying to be somebody else. And I was trying to serve somebody else's vision of what I needed to do. And it was like I wasn't happy. I didn't react nimbly in the moment. I didn't laugh. So there's costs to us behaving in ways that aren't our true self. Now, are we all going to be able to have our dream jobs and work at home and do X or Y or Z? Maybe not initially, but the closer you are to knowing what your best self is, and you put yourselves in situations where you can be your best self, you're going to be happier, you're going to be saner, you're going to have a lot more fun, and you'll probably laugh a whole lot more.
Yeah. God forbid we actually have fun at work, right? Dirty. Well, it's really interesting too, because I think, speaking of, we were chatting before I hit the live button here. Chris and I were chatting a little bit about sort of generational cohorts and their expectations. And it's changed. I think, I'm a Gen Xer, and I know I have a lot of boomer friends. And I think the ones that are very close to maybe leaving the workplace in the next few years, they just have a different expectation about separation of work and life. And then Gen Xers are kind of like, no, I kind of want to be happy. And then there's millennials who are like, there is no division. I'm going to live my life. There's no wall. There's no border wall.
Exactly.
And then, it's really changed. And it seems, which is a good thing.
I think it is.
But it also seems like it's harder for people who've been alienated and told not to bring their whole selves to work. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, bring your whole self to work. And people are like, I don't trust you. You told me not to. And all of a sudden, wait a minute, it's okay. I can do that. Do you think there's just a lot of trust issues around doing that?
I think so. And I think there's a natural reticence to have, a leader at some stage say, okay, now we're gonna try and make everyone bring their best selves to work, right? And it's like, what myself is pretty twisted, and you may not think I'm as funny as I think I am, right? Or what I want to do is do something very different than my job description now
Right.
says. And how flexible are you going to be? And so there's really going to become, I
Mm,
think, much greater demands upon leaders. And I'm
yeah.
66, so I've seen
Holy
a lot of
cow.
things in the workplace, and I have some generational assumptions about how others should behave. But
Mm,
I haven't had a real job in 20 years, right? So I've been
mm,
able to do consulting and working with other organizations and learning a whole bunch with some really smart people. And that's not the way most people's lives work. You're
yeah.
more in a traditional office setting. And that office setting is not only going through tremendous upheaval and
Mm,
change today, but just wait for the Gen Zs
mm-hmm.
because they've got some interesting, cool kind of throwback uh, generational preferences, but they also want to have digital be an immediate
Yeah.
part of everything that they do. And that's way different than baby boomers, right? And
Yeah.
not necessarily true of Gen Xers. So it's I just think it's fascinating.
Oh, it's endlessly fascinating. And I just read a study put out by, oh gosh, I want to say it's one of the big consulting firms like Deloitte, but it might not be Deloitte. But it was talking about one of the biggest things that they found in the workplace, which does not surprise me at all, was the biggest issue is the need for psychological safety, which people
Yes.
feel is missing. And
Yes.
I was shocked and yet not shocked at most people will not perform with their whole selves because the trust issue is very specific. It's they don't the need for psychological safety has been so great, and they feel violated. They feel like their managers have broken that trust,
Yep.
and so then how do we've got broken leaders who maybe aren't feeling like they're happy, and we've got teams that aren't happy. How do we repair psychological trust so that the leaders feel they can be themselves and also teams can be
Yeah,
themselves? Because
yeah. Well,
yeah,
it's such a great question, and I think it was Deloitte because
I
Deloitte
think it
just did a
was.
wonderful
I think it was.
millennial study, and I think I read that as well. And the issue of psychological safety has always been a need,
Mm-hmm.
but millennials are expressing it, and Gen Zs are
Yeah.
going to express it. And so, what has been okay behavior by leaders to basically promise X, deliver Z, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gee, I
Mm-hmm.
hoped I could do that, but I can't. So tough crap. So there's no crying in baseball, right? You can't cry here, right?
That's right.
But it's the issue of, well, if you said you were going to do X and you haven't, and now
Yeah.
you don't demonstrate any remote caring
Mm-hmm.
about that broken promise with me, screw this. And so we end up with people who are unhappy leaders doing work that does not make them happy, with team members who don't feel like it's a trustful, respectful environment.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I sign up, right? So the reality is, and
Yeah.
part of my work around culture is no. Let's stop and let's define what a good citizen behaves like. And
Mm.
so, in essence, what the culture engine describes and what my consulting work describes is let's define values in behavioral terms. So, what does it mean by integrity? Well, it
Mm.
may mean that I do what I say I will do. And it's like, holy God, if they did that, then
Mm-hmm.
psychological safety would be much better. I'm going to
Yeah.
treat others with respect, no matter if I disagree with their ideas. That would evolve psychological safety. So there's some really cool ways. And again, it puts the pressure on leaders to behave
Mm-hmm.
differently, to
Mm-hmm.
listen, to be more in the moment, and potentially not come at every
Mm-hmm.
challenge/opportunity with a template, but to be more improvisational, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and to say, I got no idea. Tell me what you guys think we ought to do, because clearly this isn't working. And
Right.
bosses, as a rule, especially, let's call it longer standing generational folks who live for a long time, right? Old farts, old white guys like me, and others who think the same
Yeah.
way, who I have to know the right answer. I have to be able to present this confident thing, even if I'm
Yeah.
completely not confident. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, you don't. You can ask for help. You can say, I don't
Exactly.
know what to do.
Exactly. And it's so funny because people don't expect you to know everything anyway. And there is no script for uncertainty. And the thing that I'm always amazed by is if you just let go and you say to your team, look, we've never seen anything like this before. We're charting new territory. Let's do it together. I don't have the answers, but here's what I can promise you. I'll listen to all your ideas. I may not be able to use all your ideas, but I promise you, I care. Let's get all those best ideas on the table. And if you actually collaborated with your team, you don't have to do it all. I think the micromanagers, the people who are like, well, I have so much work to do. Well, no, that's because you're stupid and you don't listen to anybody. and you've chose, you know what I mean? You've created your own work. And if you just let go and listen, your team's going to feel like, you know what, I've got an idea. Great, let's hear it. And you might get some amazing ideas. You don't have to do it all. But it's such a foreign concept, I think, for certain generations to get. And
I think that's exactly true. And we also get into ego that comes into play. So there can be personal, social style preferences that can kind of cause us to not listen well and not treat others well. And it's the idea of if there's a genuine concern demonstrated by a leader that they appreciate what I bring, right? The contributions are valued. My ideas are valued. Even my mistakes I'm not hung for. Now we're starting, right, to evolve a bit with that psychological safety.
Yeah, it's sort of, I always joke, it's sort of the Dilbert mug and t-shirt effect. It's sort of like, here's our mug, right? But I always laugh because like Enron, if you remember Enron had a plaque in their lobby that said, we value customers. So it's like, if you're the plaque, you're the mug, you're the t-shirt, you've reduced it to a virtual parody of itself. And people are like, no. You first prove it, live it, model it. I don't care about the t-shirt.